So often, we as parents don't even know where to start with our kids. And we're given a diagnosis or we're given the prognosis and we're so overwhelmed and it seems like this big, huge looming project, right? To save your child and you don't even know where to start. So, this is what we're going to do in this session. We are going to start at the very beginning, like what to do first. First steps. This is what we're going to go over today is first steps. Where do you start? So you've got a kid and they're challenging. And maybe you didn't even know they were challenging, but now you see it now. Whatever the case, the very first thing to start with is respect. Who would have thought? Respect. I know. Get this. So I had my son, and we were now 2 months into him first arriving in my house. And every day, every night, we had the rages, we had everything. We had the furniture being broken, we had him being kicked out of daycare already, we had everything. And still to this point, I was just like, oh, he just needs love. I mean, you know, as his caregiver now, you know, I was a foster parent, he really needs love. I mean, look at all that he's been through. He just needs love, really. And so I went to my sister's for Christmas break. And I took my new son. And over Christmas break, I had now not my house being destroyed, but my sister's house being destroyed. So I had to figure out a way to somehow control this kid because I could not afford to pay my sister to fix all of her house that was being broken. And she handed me this book, which at the time happened to be the Purple Book. And I picked it up and it said something like attachment disorder, and I was like, no. He's 4. He doesn't have attachment disorder. Look at his life, what he's been through. He just needs love. You know, he always wants to be around me. I mean, true, he wants to hit me when he's around me, but he always wants to be around me, so he must be attached to me. He must be attached to me. This kid does not have any attachment disorder. But after I finally, after a 3-hour battle that night, decided to at least read a little bit of the book. So I picked it up and I read through the symptoms, the checklist of things that if your child does this, they might have attachment disorder. And I read through that and I'm like, no. Well, maybe, no. And I got to the end and I'm like, you know what? I really don't think this kid has any type of attachment disorder. But it was a good book. So I read some more. And one of the very first things it told me was, you know what? Respect is really important. Because as parents, we are like kings and queens in our homes. We want our children to be princes and princesses, not in the bad sense where they think the world revolves around them, even though they already think that. But we want them to be princes and princesses in the sense that they go somewhere in life. They have value. They have purpose. They have direction. And they can only be princes and princesses if we are kings and queens. The problem is that our children often think that we are like rugs to be walked over, to be kicked, to leave dirty shoes on. And the problem is that kids are only as, well, they're not even as, as elevated as the parents are. So if a parent is a rug, the children then, one ring below that, would really be the dirt under the rug. I bet they didn't think of that when they decided we were rugs to be walked on. But if we as parents are now kings and queens, well then that puts them at the status of princes and princesses. And so it got me to thinking that in my relationship thus far with my son, I really had not established respect. I mean, I went into this relationship being the rough and tumble, gonna do pillow fights with the kids, we're gonna slurp our cereals in the morning with straws and be silly. That was my idea of, being a foster parent and having a child. Not to say I was irresponsible, but I was more of the, let's have fun with them, let's get down to their level, let's help them to feel comfortable, so I'm gonna play with them. And every night, my son had been getting out of bed sometime during the middle of the night when he woke up and coming to get into bed with me up in my room. And I had always thought that this was a sign of attachment, that he cared for me. And even when we were at my sister's house, he was doing the same thing. So after reading this chapter on respect and realizing that I really didn't have any respect, peace, and play in this relationship, I decided, all right, you know what? You're right. Respect is important. If, he can only look up to me if I hold out that respect. And, the parent's bedroom, especially the parent's bed, is something that really should be sacred. I mean, the kids should be, almost hold it in like reverence, like, whoa, that is the parent's bedroom, that's sacred ground type of thing. You don't mess with that. So that night when my son came in, climbed into bed with me without asking, just climbed right on top of me, plopped down, made his usual appearance. I don't know, it made me pause, it made me think. And then what happened was that he draped his leg over my legs. Needed a rest for his leg, obviously. And so, I don't know, I felt that first twinge of, I don't think this is showing respect. And so I decided to gently, kindly take his leg and put it off of mine. And wouldn't you know, but as soon as I did that, his leg went right back over mine. I thought, this is interesting. The book didn't say what to do now. I still feel kind of disrespected. This is my bed. Okay, I'm gonna do it again. So I took his leg and I kindly, gently put it to the side. 5 seconds later, bam, even harder this time over my legs. I thought, how interesting. So I made the first call on respect, and I told him that he had to go back to his bed. That started what became known as World War III. And what I noticed was the next morning, as I started holding myself in respect, there was more backlash. And he started to fight harder against this. And that is when all of the symptoms on that checklist came out the very next day. One day, I hadn't seen any of it because I had been a rough and tumble, gonna get on your level, gonna play Legos with you and get on the floor and let you do whatever because I want to be your buddy. And the next day, when I started to hold myself in respect, still lovingly and played with them, but held myself in respect, all of those symptoms came out. So respect is what I'm going to tell you is where you start with. And it might make things worse at first, just like it did with my son. But until you become the full target, they will not heal. Because their fear, again, is attaching with you. And so until you propose yourself as someone that they can attach to, they have no reason to fight against you because you're not a threat. But all of a sudden when you come in and you basically are saying that you are volunteering, you have signed up for the job of being their parent, then all of a sudden you become the full target and all of their rage is directed against you. So as we talk about the things that you're going to do to start out with respect, expect some backlash from your kid. Expect them to fight against that as that puts them in that place of, oh my word, I might have to trust them again. All right, so saying all that, how do we start with respect? Well, first, respect, one of the favorite things that our kiddos love to do is interrupt us. Not very respectful. Another thing that our kids love to do is avoid eye contact. They'll look all around you while they're talking to you, or especially when you are talking to them. They'll look everywhere else when you're talking to them. What are some other things of respect? Walking. So you see ducks. We'll use ducks as an example right now. When you see ducks with their children, ducklets, walking, who's walking in front? Are the ducklets leading the way and the parents are coming up behind? No, the parents are leading the way and the ducklets are all lined up in a row. How are they getting their ducklets to line up in a row when all of our kids are like out and about and running and we're trying to collect each one as they run through the store knocking cereal boxes down? What are other areas of respect? We can talk about, let's see, let me look at my checklist again, Karen. Oh yes. Okay, so what are some other areas of respect? What about a yes mom or a yes dad? When was the last time you heard that out of your kid's mouth? Or, and I know this is stretching it, but what about a yes mom followed by actually obeying you? Let me give you hope. That is where we are headed. I know that's not probably what you have experienced so far, but that is where we are going. We are going for the yes, mom, cheerful, and then actually obeying you the first time. No questions asked, no complaints, no comments, no noises. That's a big one, no noises. And just a simple yes. I would love to do whatever you told me to do. Okay, what are some other things of respect? What about repeating yourself? How many times do we say something and our kids are like, huh? And then we go over and we repeat ourselves. So, I mean, there's a million things that we could talk about with respect. One of the rules that I came to think of when I was going through this was just, okay, in the mornings, I stand in front of the mirror and I look at myself and I'm like, all right, today, I don't feel like it, but today I am the queen in this house. What does that mean? And as the day would go along, I would be like, okay, this is what a queen means. Right now, the queen means scrubbing this toilet and getting the house clean. Right now, a queen means that I'm going to sit down and I'm going to read my kids a story. Being a queen means, ooh, my child disrespected me and I'm not going to let that pass. I'm going to correct them. I'm going to snip it in the bud right now. And so we think about what it means to be a king or a queen. And whatever image we come up with, that's what we aim for. So that we have a goal, we're going somewhere, rather than being lost in the mire and still not knowing what to do. So as you think about what would a cool king and queen do, it's not that the king and queen just sit on their thrones and do nothing. No, like a cool king would be out throwing a baseball with his kids. You know, a queen would be getting down and helping around and helping the servants get the work done. They get dirty. They fight. The king goes out to the battles and fights. So, and yet with this hard work that comes with king and queen, there is a certain element of respect that comes with king and queen too. And so I propose that as we start to establish respect in our homes, we go through our homes and we decide what is sacred versus common. And set that limit. And again, when you set a limit, expect your kids to break that limit. They look for the limit so that they can break them. So when you set that limit, expect them to break it and be prepared ahead of time for what you are going to do when they break that limit. But for now, we're just going to talk about setting that certain things aside as sacred. Some families have decided, you know what? Dad has a chair. in the living room. It could be the one in front of the TV so he can watch the football games. But Dad has a chair. And no one sits in Dad's chair. It doesn't matter who you are. You could be the neighbor. You could be the president. Even the president does not walk into your home and sit in the king's chair. Similarly, you wouldn't let your kids sit in the king's chair. It's just one of those things of respect. The parents' bedroom. That was for me one line that I decided to set aside as sacred. Is at the doorstep was the line. And my kids were not allowed, unless invited by me, to cross that line and come into my bedroom, because that was my sacred space as the queen. Perhaps for some families it will be the kitchen. That's mom's territory, that is sacred. Perhaps for some not. Whatever it is, you, for your family, get to decide what is sacred and what is common for the whole family. You get to decide at which point you want to establish that respect. But I guarantee you that wherever you put that mark of respect, your kids will rise to meet that mark. So you could put your mark low and have them, say they're or what, or, maybe obey on the third or fourth time if you start to beg them. But if you set the mark up here where you expect them to make eye contact with you every time, you expect them to be cheerful, you expect them to say their yes moms and then rush off to do whatever you ask them to do. If you expect them to wait quietly until you are done with your conversation rather than interrupt you, wherever you set that mark of respect, that's where they will eventually come up to. So, as parents, I inspire each of us to set that mark high. We want our kids to reach high in life. And this is where it starts, is in the home. And as we train them and as we provide them with these skills, these are the skills that they're going to take with them to their future job, to their future marriage. When they go for that job interview, you're not going to want them to be saying, what? No, you're going to want them to have that level of respect, to understand the difference between sacred and common. And so, as we prepare our children for life, knowing that we have children who have a higher tendency to not succeed in life, let us set that standard high with respect and watch them make that mark.